Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopichana Vallabha Girivardhari. Put it over. Vallabha Girivardhari. Gopichana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bharat Paramahansa, Paridikacharya, Ashtotar, the Srimad. His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT found in our church, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jaya Vishnu Pad Paramahansa, Paridikacharya, Ashtotar, the Srimad. His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavini ki Jai. Namacharya, Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Grantaraj srimadbhagavatam ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiriye. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashtaprayesha Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavat Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam, and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord, who is glorified in transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So first of all, it's an absolute miracle that my voice is still working. I woke up this morning, I could hardly talk from last night's kirtan, but somehow it's recovered enough so it can, this range, if I try to sing higher, it'll disappear. So today being the actual anniversary of the Govardhana Puja, I thought we'd have a little special class, and we were going to begin with this verse from the 10th canto, chapter 26, text 25. This is a chapter called Wonderful Krishna, in which the residents of Vrindavan are just amazed at what had just happened. This is after Krishna had lifted the hill and put it down again. And so Nanda Maharaj reveals all of the predictions that Garga Muni had made when he gave Krishna his birth ceremony and his names. And then the residents sing this verse, which is kind of a nice little summary of Govardhana Lila, and a prayer that Krishna will be their Indra. So we'll have a shot at this one. It's kind of long. Let's see what happens. This is, okay, let me give you. On this 28th day of October 2019 in SanDiego, we're reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam 10th canto, chapter 26, text 25, in honor of the Govardhana Lila. This is the actual anniversary of Govardhana Puja. Deve varshiti yagya viplavarusha vadrashma varshanilai sidat pala pashustriyatma shadanam drishtyanu kampyutsmayan utpatyaika karena shailam abaloli lochilindram yata Bibhrangoshnam apan mahindra madabhit priyana indro gavam. Good try. I'll read the translation now. So, Indra became angry when his sacrifice was disrupted, and thus he caused rain and hail to fall on Gokula. This hail was like as big as basketballs. Fall on Gokula, accompanied by lightning and powerful winds, all of which brought great suffering to the cowherds, the animals, and the women there. When Lord Krishna, who was by nature always compassionate, saw the condition of those who had only him as their shelter, he smiled broadly and lifted Govardhana hill with one hand, just as a small child picks up a mushroom to play with it. Holding up the hill, he protected the cowherd community. So this is all of the cowards uttering this. And then so they have this prayer at the end. May he, Govinda, the Lord of the cows and the destroyer of Indra's false pride, be pleased with us. And this Lord of the cows is Indro Gavam. In other words, may he be our Indra. He's our actual Indra. So this is a nice little summary of the Govardhana Lila. And now I'd like to review that Lila and then go to Krishna book, which I thought I had marked, but I didn't. But just give me a second here. I know where it is. I have that queued up. Okay. Alrighty. Yeah, here it is. Okay. So just to review, this pastime begins right after the Krishna had honored the Brahmins' wives. The Brahmins' wives were great devotees. Their husbands not so great. They were performing these official sacrifices, pouring water in the ghee pouring ghee into the fire and ordering all these mantras for going to heaven. It was a materialistic, more or less. And the boys were feeling hungry, and so Krishna said, well, go to the Brahmins and see if they'll give you some of their prasadam there, because they're performing the sacrifice. They went to the Brahmins, and the Brahmins wouldn't even stop their sacrifice. They didn't give them a yes or no, didn't even acknowledge their existence. So the boys went back disappointed, and Krishna laughed, and he says, now go to their wives, who were staying in a little house nearby. He went to the wives, and as soon as the wives heard that Krishna and Balaram were nearby, they're not going to give the boys food. They're going to pack that food away, and they're going to go take it to Krishna personally. They wanted to see Krishna. So they saw him, and it was a nice, wonderful exchange. They expressed their love. And then after that, Krishna, right nearby, Krishna saw that his father and the other senior members of Vrindavan, the cowherds, were preparing a very elaborate sacrifice. So he knew what was going on, but he asked them, what's this sacrifice? Oh, Father, what's the purpose of it? And so the father, Nanda was a little reluctant to tell him, because this is official business. It's just like a little boy goes to his father at the kitchen table, and the father is busy preparing his tax returns, and which is really what the sacrifice is for Indra. And yes, well, what's it all about? And his father says, well, he won't be able to understand these tax returns, so he doesn't say anything. So that's what Nanda was doing. He was kind of ignoring him at first. But then Indra said, oh, you shouldn't keep a secret, Father. I'm one of, part of the community. And so finally he explained, well, this is for Indra, because we're a cowherd community, we're agricultural, we need regular rain at the right time, not too much, not too little, in order to prosper. And every year we perform this sacrifice for Indra, and he provides the rain right amount at the right times. That's basically what he said. And so Krishna, well, is this traditional, or is it from the Vedas, or what? Well, this is just tradition. We've always done it. All the cowherd communities do that. So Krishna started speaking atheist philosophy, believe it or not. He wanted to curb Indra's pride. He had various, just like Krishna's very expert, which means he accomplishes different things with one activity. So the first thing was that Indra was getting too proud. He wanted to curb his unnecessary pride. He especially wanted to illustrate for the cowherd men and for everyone else, that you don't need to worship any demigods for anything. Just worship me. I'll provide everything you need. He says in Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Kshemam Bahamyaham. I personally carry your yoga and kshema. Now in this context, yoga means your necessities of life. And kshema means your welfare, your safety, your security. So those two things are necessary for peace and prosperity in any society. So Krishna says he'll provide us. So before I go on, I should offer my obeisance to Prabhupada. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Shri Parampara. Okay, sorry. The format was a little different. So, Krishna started speaking something called Karma Mimamsa philosophy. This is one branch of philosophy, and India has many different branches of philosophy besides the Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy. And this is a branch of philosophy that says basically that there may or may not be a God, but don't worry about it. What you really need to do is to perform your duties very nicely within Varnashram society, and that will ensure that you have peace and prosperity, because everything is simply controlled by karma. Even if there is a God, then he's going to reward you. He's bound by the law of karma also. He has to reward you according to your good and bad karma. So you simply follow your duties in Varnashram very nicely, understand the Vedic section that deals with that, and you perform your duties nicely, and everything will come from that. That's all you need to worry about. And so Indra said, what does Indra have to do with this? He's like a bureaucrat. In other words, if you pay, you go to the DMV, right? And you have all your papers in order, you have your fees in order. So that clerk there, he doesn't have any freedom to say, no, I don't think you should have a license. He's bound by the law. That you have your papers nicely, and you're not a criminal and everything, and he gives you the license or whatever else you need. So Indra is just like that. He's part of the government. He's bound by the karma. Don't worry about him. After all, he's pouring rain everywhere. He's pouring rain on the rocks, he's pouring rain on the ocean. Simply that's what he does. So that rain will come to you in a proper amount. Don't worry about Indra. But what you should do is take this very paraphernalia that you prepared for Indra, all the ghee and the offerings and the food and the bhoga, and you perform a beautiful sacrifice honoring Govardhana hill and the cows and the Brahmins. That will be very auspicious for us, and it will please me very much, Father. So at first, as Prabhupada says in the Krishna book, they said, well, we'll have a separate sacrifice. He says, no. You take this same paraphernalia that'll take a long time. You've already collected everything. You just use this paraphernalia for that. In other words, he wanted Indra to become upset. So it worked. First of all, this beautiful circumambulating of the hill. This is done today and in India today. Thousands of pilgrims are going around that hill. And the cows were all honored. They were painted very nicely. They put all of these things and put garlands on them and everything. And the Brahmins. And the main thing, the big thing, and that's why another name for this is called Annakuta, which means a mountain of food, a mountain of prasadam. So that feed everybody. Everybody gets fed, from up all the way from the Brahmins down to the dogs and the chandals. Everybody should have a feast today. That's a big part of this holiday, which we'll see on Saturday, when we're actually going to celebrate. So they followed Krishna's instructions very nicely. Krishna manifested himself in a huge form as the hill itself. And then if you go to Vrindavan, you say, Ani or, which means bring me more, bring me more. He's consuming all of these offerings. So all the little villages around, they prepare all this prasadam, they bring all of their milk products, all of their ghee, and they prepare it. It's a big feast for everybody. So that's Govardhana Puja, and everyone was very happy going around that hill, honoring, chanting Hare Krishna. So everyone was happy, but Indra wasn't happy. Now because Indra, this is part of his personality, he lets the mode of passion kind of overcome him, and it covers his knowledge. He is a devotee. He's a devotee of Krishna. And he performs a very important function, controlling all the weather and the climate and everything. But he lost his intelligence. He thought that Krishna was just a talkative little boy. And he said, those foolish... I wrote a little poem. When Krishna stopped King Indra's sacrifice, that monarch of the heavens threw a fit. Those cowards took that foolish boy's advice. Such insolence I never shall permit. So Indra sent the clouds of devastation to pour down catastrophic hail and rain with lightning, thunder, winds without cessation. The cowards called to Krishna in their pain to show his coward friends his boundless love and crush King Indra's pride for his own good. Shri Krishna lifted Govardhana above and saved his friends while neath the hill they stood. So that's what Indra did. He became infuriated, maddened in both senses of the term, and he sent the clouds of ultimate devastation. There's these Samvartaka clouds that are supposed to only be used at the time of universal annihilation, when there's a huge flood and there's a huge drought, and everything is destroyed. So he employed those clouds to pour down not just rain, but hail, and it's devastated Vrindavan. He was going to annihilate everybody. Completely lost it. So that was his response. He called Krishna a foolish, talkative little boy. Our acharyas have turned it around and shown how it's actually praised, but I won't get into that. So that was his response. So then, I'm going to read this it's a short chapter, and we'll comment during it. Devastating rainfall in Vrindavan. This is chapter 25 of the Krishna book. When Indra understood that the sacrifice that was to be offered by the coward men in Vrindavan had been stopped by Krishna, he became very angry. And he vented his anger upon the inhabitants of Vrindavan, who were headed by Nanda, although Indra knew perfectly well that Krishna was personally protecting them. He knew that, but he was overwhelmed with his anger. As the director of different kinds of clouds, Indra called for the Samvartaka. This cloud is invited when there is a need to devastate the whole cosmic manifestation. The Samvartaka was ordered by Indra to go over Vrindavan and inundate the whole area with an extensive flood. Demonically, Indra thought himself to be the all-powerful Supreme Personality. When demons become very powerful, they defy the supreme control of the personality of Godhead. Indra, though not a demon, was puffed up by his material position, and he wanted to challenge the supreme controller. He thought himself, at least for the time being, as powerful as Krishna. Indra said, "Just see the impudence of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. They're simply inhabitants of the forest, but being infatuated with their friend Krishna, who is nothing but an ordinary human being, they have dared to defy the demigods." He sounds like a demon, but he's really just a foolish devotee who is becoming overwhelmed. And we'll see, I'll just mention it later on, that afterward he has these prayers, he's very contrite. Krishna has declared in the Gita that the worshippers of the demigods are not very intelligent. He has also declared that one has to give up all kinds of worship and simply concentrate on Krishna consciousness. Krishna's invoking the anger of Indra and later on chastising him is a clear indication to his devotees that those who are engaged in Krishna consciousness have no need to worship any demigod, even if it is found that the demigod has become angry. Krishna gives his devotees all protection, and they should completely depend on his mercy. So this is one of the basic principles of Krishna consciousness. We usually recite, although we didn't this morning, 10 offenses to the holy name, because our main process is chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. This is the Yuga Dharma of this age. It is the process for advancement. So one of the offenses is to consider the names of the demigods to be equal to or independent of the holy name of Vishnu or Krishna. Now there's two different things going on, equal to and independent of. Equal to, those who think it equal to, but you can chant any name. You can Shiva, 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 you can chant Kali, doesn't matter which name you chant, it's just helping you concentrate, and you'll advance that way. This is a great offense. The other offense is to think they're independent, meaning that, I'm going to chant the name of Krishna to get love of God. But what about my prosperity? I have to chant the name of Shiva, maybe some Kali worship. So therefore you have temples, maybe you've seen these temples, where there's usually Lakshmi Narayan, sometimes Radha Krishna, but you'll also have Ganesh over there, and you have, of course, Ramchandra, which is fine, but you'll have Shiva, especially the worship, and maybe Kali, So you cover all the bases. This is not bhakti. This is business, It's like going to a supermarket. Well, you don't want a supermarket just with one item. You want all the items so you can fill your basket, So Krishna wanted to, for all time, destroy this idea. Is that you just worship me and all of your material and spiritual needs will be met. That's what bhakti is. Bhakti is ultimately that you're simply concerned with glorification and pleasing Krishna. And whatever Krishna wants you to have, he'll let you have. And he assures us, as I mentioned from the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga Kshemam Bahamyaham. One who unswervingly worships me. Ananyas chintayanto mam yajana payapasate. I personally carry what they lack and preserve what they have, which is the yoga and Kshema. So that's one of Krishna's main purposes here. Now a more rasika one, a more personal one, is that he wanted to give all the residents of Vrindavan and the cows and the gopis and everyone a chance to associate him with constantly for 7 days and nights without reserve. Normally Krishna would go out during the day and herd the cows, and all the gopis are in great separation from them, and then he would come back, and so they'd have intermittent association with him. So this was a chance where they would have this very intense association constantly for 7 days. That was another purpose. So, back to our... Indra cursed the action of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. By defying the authority of the demigods, the inhabitants of Vrindavan will suffer in material existence. Having neglected the sacrifice to the gods, they cannot cross over the impediments of the ocean of material existence. Indra further declared, "These coward men in Vrindavan have neglected my authority and the advice of this talkative boy known as Krishna. He's nothing but a child, and believing this child, they've enraged me." Thus he ordered the Samvartika cloud to go and destroy the prosperity of Vrindavan, basically destroy Vrindavan. The men of Vrindavan, said Indra, have become too puffed up over their material opulence and are overconfident due to the presence of their tiny friend, Krishna. He's simply talkative, childish, unaware of the complete cosmic situation, although he's thinking himself very advanced in knowledge. Because they've taken Krishna so seriously, they must be punished. They should be destroyed with their cows. So obviously he's completely overreacting here. In this way, Indra ordered the Samvartaka cloud to go to Vrindavan and inundate the place. It's indicated here that in the villages or outside the towns, the inhabitants must depend on the cows for their prosperity. When the cows are destroyed, the people are destitute of all kinds of opulence. When Indra ordered the Samvartaka and companion clouds to go to Vrindavan, the clouds were afraid of doing this mischief. This is Prabhupada's ordered this. This is not in the Bhagavatam. But King Indra assured them, "You go ahead, I'll also go riding on my elephant, Airavata, accompanied by great storms. And I shall apply all my strength to punishing the inhabitants of Vrindavan." So the Samvartaka clouds, they knew this was a mistake, but they finally surrendered, and off they go. Ordered by Indra, all the dangerous clouds appeared above Vrindavan and began to pour water incessantly with all their strength and power. There was constant lightning and thunder, blowing of severe wind, and incessant falling of rain. The rain seemed to fall like piercing sharp arrows. It's also mentioned that there's big hailstones. By pouring water as thick as pillars without cessation, the clouds gradually filled all the lands in Vrindavan with water, and there was no visible distinction between higher and lower land. So you can imagine everything is getting flooded there. And that's a great danger, very dangerous. The situation was very dangerous, especially for the animals. The rainfall was accompanied by great winds, and every living creature in Vrindavan began to tremble from severe cold. Unable to find any other source of deliverance, they all approached Govinda to take shelter at his lotus feet. The cows especially, being much aggrieved from the heavy rain, bowed down their heads, taking their calves underneath their bodies. They approached the Lord to take shelter of his lotus feet. At that time, all the residents of Vrindavan, we'll call them Brijbasis from now on, the Brijbasis began to pray to Lord Krishna, "Dear Krishna, you are all-powerful. You are very affectionate to your devotees. Please protect us, who have been much harassed by angry Indra." Hearing their prayer, Krishna could understand that Indra, bereft of his sacrificial honor, was, in other words, he'd been insulted, was pouring down rain that was accompanied by heavy pieces of ice and strong winds, although this was all out of season. Krishna understood. Now, here we are. This is the end of the Chaturmasya. I think Chaturmasya has already ended, hasn't it? And so it's supposed to be the autumn season, not the rainy season. The rainy season you get this heavy wind, heavy rain, but this is completely out of season. He concluded, "This demigod who thinks himself supreme has shown his great power, but I shall answer him according to my position. I'll teach him that he is not autonomous in managing universal affairs. I am the Lord over all, and I shall thus take away his false prestige, which has risen from his power. The demigods are my devotees, and so it's not possible for them to forget my supremacy, but somehow or other, he's become puffed up with material power, and thus he's now maddened. I shall act in such a way as to relieve him of this false prestige. I'll give protection to my pure devotees in Vrindavan, who are at present completely dependent on my mercy, and whom I have taken completely under my protection. I must save them by my mystic power." Thinking in this way, Lord Krishna immediately picked up Govardhana hill with one hand, exactly as a child picks up a mushroom from the ground. Thus he exhibited his transcendental pastime of lifting Govardhana hill. Now, I don't know if it's explained here, but he kept it on his pinky, just to illustrate. It's not like, just to insult Indra more. Your power is nothing. I'm just going to hold it. And people are thinking, well, is that balanced very well? That's why you see these paintings where the coward men are holding it up with their sticks. I think Mother Yashoda says, "Help him! What good are you coward men? Will you help my little boy?" Because she's just thinking it is. And so he's standing there, and she says, "He must be getting hungry." So there's some pictures where she's feeding him with some fruit and yogurt. She can't believe that he can hold it up. My dear brothers, so Krishna lifted the hill. My dear brothers, my dear father, dear inhabitants, dear Brijbasis, you can now safely enter under the umbrella of Govardhana hill, which I've just lifted. Don't be afraid of the hill. Think it will fall from my hand. You have been too much afflicted from the heavy rain and strong wind. So I've lifted this hill, which will protect you like a huge umbrella. I think this is a proper arrangement to relieve you of your immediate distress. Be happy along with your animals beneath this great umbrella. Assured by Krishna, All the inhabitants of Vrindavan entered beneath the great hill, along with their property and their animals, and they all appeared to be safe. The Brijbasis and their animals remained there for a whole week without being disturbed by hunger, thirst, or any other discomforts. So nobody slept. It's just like cricket sitting there, They were completely transcendental to the bodily needs. They were just focused on Krishna's beautiful face and relishing his protection. Seeing the extraordinary mystic power of Krishna, Indra, the king of heaven, was thunderstruck and baffled in his determination. He immediately called for all the clouds and asked them to desist. When the sky became completely clear of all clouds and the sun rose, the strong wind stopped. At that time, Krishna, known now as the lifter of Govardhana hill, Giridhari, that's the name, that's what Giridhari means, lifter of the hill, said, "My dear cowherd men, now you can leave. Take your wives, your children, your cows, your valuables. Everything is ended. The inundation has gone down, along with the swelling waters of the river." All the men loaded their valuables on carts and slowly left with their cows and other paraphernalia. After they had cleared out everything, Krishna very slowly replaced the Govardhana hill in exactly the same position it had been before. When everything was done, all the Brijbasis approached Krishna with feelings of love and embraced him with great ecstasy. You can imagine. The gopis, being naturally very affectionate to Krishna, began to offer him yogurt mixed with their tears, and they poured incessant blessings upon him. So the blessings, that includes the elder gopis. The elder gopis are also gopis, and they're offering blessings. Yashoda, Mother Rohini, Nanda, and Balaram, the strongest of the strong, embraced Krishna one after another, and from spontaneous feelings of affection, blessed him over and over again. In the heavens, different demigods from different planetary systems like Siddhaloka, Gandharvaloka, Charanaloka also began to show their complete satisfaction. They poured showers of flowers on the surface of the earth and sounded various conch shells. The beating of drums, being inspired by godly feelings, the residents of Gandharvaloka began to play on their tambours to please the Lord. After this incident, the Lord, surrounded by his dear friends and animals, returned home. As usual, the gopis began to chant the glorious pastimes of Lord Krishna with great feeling, for they were chanting from the heart. And that's the end of this chapter 25, Devastating Rainfall in Vrindavan. So this, it's very nice to remember this pastime today. If you go there to Govardhana, it's a wonderful experience to go around that hill. I've done it several times. And at one end of the Govardhana hill is Radhakund, which is the holiest place in the universe. And you can take bath there or just honor, pray to Srimati Radharani. Now for like 20 years or so, there was an ISKCON center right at next to Govardhana hill. This was a kind of a small palace that a king had owned. Even today there are kings, and it was donated. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was able to get that donation back in mid-90s, early 90s. And it's a wonderful retreat. Devotees go there, they can stay there, and circumambulate the hill every day. Vaisheshika Prabhu has been doing it for many years, and he has Janardhan with him right now, going around that hill. I don't know how many times he can go. It's a little bit of a strain for Westerners to walk around, because you should go barefoot. And so it's a jagya. But it's worth it. And if you get a chance, you should do it. So what are the lessons of this Govardhana puja? Once again, is that, first of all, Indra, it's chronic with him. It's chronic. We're just reading in the 4th canto with Prithu. King Prithu was a great protector of the world. He had after his father Vena had caused so much distress to everybody, he comes out, and then he gets the earth giving everything again, and prosperity is reigning. And so he wants to perform 100 sacrifices in order to celebrate. But Indra became envious. He thinks, 100 sacrifices? I did 100 sacrifices, and I became Indra. If he does it, maybe he'll take my post. So he disguises himself as a sannyasi so he can walk into the assembly, and then he steals the 100th horse. And he goes off, so he's childish. So, but Prithu's son became enraged, and he went after Indra, and he had to be pacified and everything. Finally, the Brahma came down, and Vishnu came down and said, don't be so attached to that 100 sacrifice. 99 is plenty, you're fine, you're doing everything okay. So there's some important lessons coming that we're reading now. Vishnu is speaking to Prithu. But where is that coming from? And Krishna, what's interesting is here, he went through this whole thing, and in the next chapter, after this verse, after there's a chapter, Wonderful Krishna, which ends with the verse that we read. And then there's Surabhi comes, or maybe that's before the Wonderful. Anyway, that after the whole is over, then Indra wants to apologize, but he wants to do it in private because he's kind of embarrassed. So he goes to a private place to meet Indra, and Surabhi comes. There's a planet. It's called Goloka, but it's not Goloka Vrindavan. It's the planet of the cows, of the Surabhi cows. And here's the chief cow comes down and offer to do Abhishek for Krishna and pray to him, because so much of this is involved with saving the cows, honoring the cows as a central part of the community. So then Indra has these wonderful prayers, begging for forgiveness, saying, okay, go back, do your duty, And they perform an Abhishek. Surabhi with the milk, and Indra, he invokes the Manasa Ganga, special holy water from the sky, and they do a wonderful Abhishek, bathing ceremony for Krishna. So, and then a few years later, when Krishna's in Dwarka, he kills Narakasura, who was so powerful that he was able to steal the earrings of Aditi, who's the mother of all the demigods, and he was keeping him. So Krishna kills Narakasura, and he frees all these kings who had been imprisoned, and he retrieves these earrings. So then he goes up to the heavenly planet to return the earrings to Aditi, and Satyabhama, who's with him. Satyabhama is kind of a special queen. She goes out and on the battlefield with Krishna, on Garuda. Tough lady. And so she goes up to the heavenly planets, and she says, oh, look at all those parijata trees. Get me a parijata tree. So Krishna, okay, so he takes the parijata, and he says, no, you can't take the parijata. This is Krishna. He can do anything he wants. There's a big fight. Even at that point, Shukadev even gets disgusted, and he says, well, this Indra is such a nonsense. So this is Indra's position. Because he has all this power and all this influence, he tends to get overwhelmed with that, and he periodically has to be chastised. He also insulted his spiritual master in the 6th canto, Brahaspati, who turned on his heel, went out of the assembly, couldn't be found, and then the whole demigod community became weakened because they insulted the guru. And the demons take over, and then there's this big fight, Vitrasura comes, this whole thing. All because Indra was too proud, sitting on watching the dancing girls, sitting on his throne, His spiritual master walks in, he doesn't get off the throne. No. Big mistake. So, what does that mean? It's not an accident that the word Indra and the word Indriyas is very close. Indriyas means senses. Our senses, when at the present moment in the conditioned state, it's very important. You read the end of the 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna asks, and it's very appropriate for this pastime, Atakena prayukto yam papam charati purusha anichanna vivashraya baladi vinayojita. What is it, Krishna, that seems to impel us to perform sinful activities, even against our own understanding, as if by force? This is very important for like Indra. Indra could say, well, what made me do it? And what could be more sinful than to try to kill all, Krishna's coward community? So Krishna answers, oh, who knows the answer? What is it that impels us? Lust, kama. Kama esha, krodha esha, rajoguna samabdava. From the mode of passion. Because after all, Indra, he's got all his stuff in power, so the mode of passion is very close to him. He's always being affected by it. But he has to curb it and perform his duties, which is very important. So, the mode of passion, which then becomes krodha, anger. We see it with Indra, right? He became enraged, lost his intelligence. That is your enemy in this world. That's what forces us to do things that we later regret when we calm down and say, oh, what did I do that? What did I, people kill their relatives and say, oh my God, I should have, So, Krishna explains there that it covers your intelligence. Avritam jnanametan. It covers your knowledge. The conditioned soul. The natural knowledge is covered. We forget that we're spirit soul. We forget all about God, and we think this is all there is, matter, and I have to exploit nature and enjoy. This is what materialism is all about. So, avitam ganame. Now, how does lust, material desire, do that? It infects our senses, mind, and intelligence. How does it go? Indriyani manobuddhet asyadastadam uchate. That, just think about it. What happens when someone becomes an addict? I was reading about how they finally decided and agreed that video games can be totally addictive. They have now some rehab center in Seattle, in Oregon. Yeah, they send the kids, playing video games 18 hours a day. It's crazy. Of course, it's just like gambling, which is not a substance, but it stimulates the same part of the brain, So that means that the lust takes over your mind, senses, and intelligence. And when the senses are addicted to some substance, that is obviously recognized, right? Heroin, alcohol, the person needs rehab. Take him away. Your friend comes, you're ruining your life. Come with me, right? And if the person is sane, then it'll go and becomes restricted association and all kinds of efforts to buck up your will so that you can avoid this disaster. So that is the indriyas. So teaching us that if we focus our mind on Krishna and we practice this Hare Krishna mantra and the chanting in the process of bhakti, then we can transmute, or I like to say sublimate, the lust back into prema, into love of God. We are by nature lovers of God, of Krishna. We belong in the spiritual world. That's our home, back to Godhead. And we were once there, and we were serving Krishna with complete happiness and bliss and security. Not a care in the world. Vaikuntha, no anxiety. But we foolishly turned away from Krishna, and we put our attention on this material energy. And that turning away was our big mistake, our original sin, if you want to call it that. And we've been entrapped and engrossed in matter ever since. On the material plane, it can be millions and millions and billions of years. Up and down the species, down we go, up to Brahmaloka, down to Patalaloka. All trying to enjoy that bliss, we capture that happiness that we lost in the spiritual world. And we get infected. We have the senses, mind, and intelligence, and we get infected with this material desire. And we become gross demons. We can become insects. The same spirit soul, the same person, irreducible. We never change. So, but now, by the mercy of Krishna and his representatives, we get the cue, we get the inspiration to change that, to really break out of this prison house and go back to our home. And that's the process of bhakti, which is a cultivation, means activity, by which we, using the same senses that are infected with the material desire and the same mind, state of intelligence, to link up to Krishna and purify, sublimate that desire. You can't give up desire. That desire, which is now for sense gratification, a desire to please Krishna's senses. And then we become spiritually happy. And that's what, of course, the Vrijbasis are already there. This is just a lesson that Krishna is teaching us through them. So that's what this Govardhana hill, it has these different elements, is that don't worship anyone else besides me, Krishna says. Because that'll just keep you in this material world for more and more suffering. And take full shelter of me, understand I will provide what you need and preserve what you have. I will provide the protection, the safety, and your necessities of life, It may not be in the same way that you imagined you needed them, because it's such exaggerated. People are leading such artificial lives. I heard a lecture this morning, Prabhupada is talking about how, yes, with all this technology, which is after all this manipulating material energy, right, you create what you think is progress, but it's actually ruin your life. He gave the example about how in the old days, in the simple agrarian society, you had a circle of friends, but they're all within reach. You can walk to see them, like that. Now, because you can drive everywhere or fly, you have friendships all over the world, right? I have a friend, he's living in Alatra now. Twice a year I go see him, Or working. If you have a field nearby, you go walk from your house, and you work and you live at home and you spend so much time with your family. But now, because of the technology, Prabhupada gives his own example in Calcutta. You have to people get on the train at 7 in the morning, go for 2 hours, and so that they can go to the job, work in the job for 10 hours, come back. And he says there's an incident. It was, where this little boy is growing up, and he never saw his father till he was like 6 years old. He asked his mother, "Who's that man?" "Oh, that's your father." Because the father leaves so early, the son is sleeping. He comes back late, his son is sleeping. So he never saw him. Until finally he grew up enough so he was getting awake. What is that? So there's always a downside. This Amazon. So everyone knows Amazon, it's very convenient, right? I use it all the time. But in the big cities, in Manhattan, it's causing a huge problem. They have a big building, everybody in there is ordering Amazon, so they have to park out there, the warehouse, all the things, there's big traffic jams. It's ruining the city life. It's already congested. In other words, everything we do to try to manipulate the material energy for our own benefit, there's a downside that's worse than the benefit, that negates the benefit. Dukkha aushadam tadapi dukkha, the same verse. So, simple life, focused on Krishna, simple living, high thinking. Your happiness is coming from simply offering Krishna a leaf, a flower, chanting his name. What's the cost? We had this big kirtan last night. Nobody was charged anything at the door to come in here. But the highest benefit, the knowledge, the wonderful talk we had, describing the life of Vishaka. All of that is feeding the soul, is actually nourishing the soul, which is our real self. And everything else follows. Everyone ate something, and they had a good time. There was no sinful activity. There was nothing like that. And what was that? The whole society can be organized that way. So that's Krishna is illustrating with this Govardhana Lila. There's so many aspects to it you can't get into. So much went on under that hill those 7 days. You read the Nectar of Devotion. Krishna's looking at the gopis. He's becoming attracted. He's trembling a little. Everyone is running. Oh, what's happening? Is he dropping the hill? Balaram is smiling. He's looking at Krishna. There's a whole pastimes go on under that hill. We can relish. Okay, it's a little late. Any comments or questions? Yes, Prabhu. Oh, I didn't get there. No. Yeah, I know. That's it. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like this.
Yes.
It's because this little plaque here, it's lifting the thing, and the deities believe that it was not man-made; it's made by Krishna himself.
The devotees.
The deity, the
is believed to have been made.
Yeah, it's not man-made, and the story behind it is just fascinating because we were invaded by Muslims, and they were trying to destroy that particular deity, and they took it in a carriage, and I mean, it's just fascinating. And the carriage got stuck, and it would not move, and then the Brahmin at the time, this is where Krishna wants to stay. And so they built a whole town around it.
Wow, really?
And it is the most fascinating. And when I was a child in the 60s, we would go there for a month. And it was just, and I still go there. I'm going there in January this year. But this was my parents' favorite temple. And so I'm going there to honor it because they're both passed now. So I go there and I pray for them over there.
We have a Nathvar deity in New Vrindavan.
Yes,
you go there.
That's the of all the ISKCON temples I've gone to, that's the only one that I've seen the
Nathvar.
Yeah, Nathvar.
I'm sorry.
Oh, Phoenix. No, Phoenix has it, but they don't have the. Maybe they do. Yes, there is. That's right. You're right. Yeah.
I forgot.
But that new one, that one is just awesome.
Yeah. That's great.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you for that. Yes. Okay. So we can end there. Or close to the Prabhupada.